56, 30, 24, and 20. What do these numbers have in common? Well, they're all what Morant shot from 3 in an NBA season. Yeah, that is unbelievable. I still can't fathom that. 56 in October, 30 in November, 24 in December, and so far 30 in January. Wow, that is horrible. As a Ja fan, that is absolutely probably the scariest thing I've ever seen in my life. Ja has never been a great shooter throughout his career, but when you're as athletic as he is, there's seemingly no need, right? And this season, he's scoring the ball at a pretty high rate, yet his three-pointer has seemingly gone, evaporated, disappeared. But does he even need it? Does Mr. Ja Morant even need a three-pointer to be successful in the playoffs? Should he fix his horrid shooting form, 2 legs stuck together? Or does it even matter? Well, let's talk about it. Ja throughout his career has never been a shooter. In college, he was a bit of a better shooter, but it's never been a thing that's been his main weapon. And of course, when you're as athletic as he is, why do you even need to shoot? And so I think that's part of the reason why he's never developed a consistent jump shot until he came into the league and it happened to be a major problem. It's just the funny thing is that in college, he actually was a pretty good three-point shooter. And it makes no sense. When you see the way that he shoots the ball, it seems pretty accurate why he would shoot a bit lower from 3. But it's funny how that stuff works. Sometimes I think that I have a fantastic jump shooting form, and then when I actually shoot, I can't hit a shot to save my life. And then there's somebody over there shooting like Lonzo, and they're hitting 50% of their threes. Sometimes form doesn't mean everything. But in the case of Ja, it makes sense why sometimes his shooting numbers are so erratic. One month he'll shoot like 55% from 3 like he did in October, and then the next he'll shoot like literally 20%. That range is just unbelievable. There's no consistency in there because when you have a jump shot like that, consistency isn't possible. And of course, even though he's so athletic, this has been a problem at times. There's been times in a year where he's still scoring the ball, but it'll be way less efficient because he's still scoring the ball at a really high rate once he enters the paint and in other areas, but his field goal percentage dips because his three-point percentage drops 30%. And as a Ja fan, this is probably the hardest thing to watch. And his three-point shooting in the NBA has been inconsistent from year to year. When he was a rookie, I think he shot around 34%. Second year, he shot like 32 or 30%. Last year, back up to 34 on much more attempts. And then this year, it was way up at the start of the season, and now it's way back down again. In the playoffs, though, he shot the 3-ball pretty well. And the first time that he ever made the playoffs with the Jazz, he shot the 3-ball pretty well, and he scored the ball really well. But last season when he played the Timberwolves, his scoring numbers were all over the place, and a lot of that had to do with the fact that he had a non-existent 3-ball for majority of this series. Especially when he was in Minnesota, he couldn't score the ball to save his life. When he came back to Memphis, though, that was a different story. But his shooting numbers overall looked way too sporadic from when he was at home and when he was away, and his jump shot was even more sporadic. In the playoffs against the Warriors, they didn't have as many defenders as the Wolves had, and they didn't center their whole defensive scheme around Ja. The Wolves were just a much better matchup in terms of trying to just completely take Ja out of the game, and that's what they did for a lot of those games. But the Warriors, when they played against Ja, they kind of let him get whatever he wanted, and it's because they didn't have as many perimeter defenders. And then once GP2 went out, I mean, it was over. And no matter how bad of a three-point shooter Ja is, when you leave him as wide open as the Warriors did, I mean wide open, nobody within 15 feet of him daring him to shoot, because if he went into the paint, there was no way they were going to stop him. I mean, he's going to hit some of them. And that's exactly what he did. In the second game, I believe he went for 5 threes. In the first game, he hit a few as well. And in the third game, he hit a few. And he shot a pretty respectable percentage from 3 in that playoff series before he went out. But it's just the problem is that even though he might hit the threes here and there, they're just daring him to shoot, which kind of hinders the rest of the Grizzlies' offense. When they leave him wide open, that means that they can stick to some of the other shooters that the Grizzlies have, like Bane and last year Melton as well. And so this seems like a major problem for Ja and the Grizzlies. But the question is, do they need this to still be extremely productive in the playoffs and make a conference final or even a championship run? And I think the answer is yes, but he doesn't have to become this amazing three-point shooter. He just needs to become a consistent threat. It always seems like at the wrong times he goes missing from three. There's no consistency with his jump shot, so they'll even leave him open when he's shooting 50% because they can live with that. But they know that eventually he'll come back down and he'll shoot like maybe 10%. And that is not even a joke. But I think sometimes Ja just settles for these threes because it's difficult when you put the amount of time in that he has, that I know that he's put in the gym, and you're like, this year is going to be my year. I'm going to hit a lot more threes. But then when it comes to the regular season, your shot's just not falling. So it's tough for him. Does he trust his work, or does he trust that literally nobody on planet Earth can stop him when he gets into the paint? And sometimes I think that that's a tough balance for him to find, especially when they're in tight games and it looks like they're giving him a free three-point shot and it's pretty much a bait. But a lot of the times he falls for it because he believes that he's put the work in and it'll eventually fall. And to some extent, that's the right mindset to have, but not when you're as good as he is when he gets to the basket. Sometimes you just got to put your head down and go in and score. And I think he's figuring that out, that the three-pointer isn't something that he has to rely on, but it needs to be something that is consistent at the right moments. But he can't be falling for when these teams just ask him and dare him to shoot the three. He needs to continue to attack like he knows he can do, and he knows that nobody can stop him. This is something that'll develop in time for Ja as he continues to understand his game and understand how teams play him, because he's really intelligent. You can see that in some of the mic'd up sessions that they have. He's a smart guy, don't get it twisted. Even though he sucks on defense, he's still a smart guy. And he's horrible on defense. Oh my goodness. I think moving forward, if he just figures out what kind of shots need to be taken at the right time, iron out his shot selection, he'll be better. And he doesn't even need a three ball that badly. Some people compare him to Russ, which I think it's a good comparison because Russ is one of the greatest players of all time in the scope of the game. He's not top 10 or anything like that, but he's like a top 50 player of all time. So that's a massive compliment to Ja. But it's also an insult because Russ has never won a chip. He's never gotten to, well, he's gotten to one final, but he has never gotten to a final by himself before. So when people throw that out to Ja, it's more of an insult that he's never going to get to the highest level and win anything of meaning. But he's nowhere near as bad of a three-point shooter as Russ is, and he's much more consistent. So I believe if he continues to iron out his shot selection as he grows and matures and continues to improve that jump shot that he has, whether that's getting a shooting trainer, I beg Lethal Shooter, please help my good friend Ja Morant. Or even if he sticks with this horrid form that he has that makes me want to gouge my eyes out every time I watch a Grizzlies game. Just doing the combination of these two, fixing his shot selection and improving his jump shot, I think the Grizzlies will be fine. He doesn't need to become Steph, he needs to become the best version of Ja. And if he does that, the Grizzlies have no limit in how good they could be. And maybe that Dylan Dynasty talk could actually come into fruition. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you like more videos like these where I dive into unique situations on some of the younger, more underrated players, teams, etc. in the NBA, then you're in the right place. Here we just sit and talk basketball and talk about some of these underrated players and situations that the media they don't care about it because it's not going to get any clicks. But us hardcore NBA fans, this is the stuff that's important. So if you don't want to miss any of that, then consider hitting a like, comment, and subscribe. Comment down below what you think about Ja and what the Grizzlies need to do for him to improve moving forward. And as always, stay rested. See you in the next one.